Listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andres Restart, and this time we are talking about potentially more announcements coming from Nintendo regarding Mario's 40th anniversary. So this is a topic of conversation I've seen pop up recently, and I thought it would be something good to briefly discuss today. It's actually my birthday weekend, so I got a lot going on. There won't be too much time editing. I'll just be playing Mario Wonder in the background while we talk about this interesting subject. So some of you may be wondering, what do you mean Mario's 40th anniversary? Nintendo hasn't been advertising anything. Well, technically, the original Mario Bros. Game came out in 1983. I am recording this video in 2023, 40 years later. And if you look at what we've gone throughout this year, there's actually been a lot of things coming out that do celebrate the Mario brand. We have the Super Mario Bros. Movie. We have Super Mario Bros. Wonder. We have Super Mario RPG and WarioWare coming out in November. In February, we have Mario vs. Donkey Kong. In March, we have Princess Peach Showtime. And later into 2024, we also have Luigi's Mansion 2 HD and Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. There's quite a lot going on right now celebrating the Mario Bros. Franchise. But could there be more? Well, that's what we're talking about today. But before going forward, let me point out that we are aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers. So if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and enjoy the ride as we talk about Nintendo every day. So what I find odd about this 40th anniversary situation is that not too long ago, and by not too long ago I mean less than 5 years ago, we were talking about this whole 35th anniversary situation for Mario in 2020, and this is 2023. So how can we be talking about the 40th anniversary when they were celebrating the 35th anniversary just 3 years ago? Well, that's because we're talking about different anniversaries here, even though it's kind of confusing. So, in 2020, Nintendo was celebrating the 35th anniversary for Super Mario Bros., which came out in 1995. And that may be confusing because they just talked about the 40th anniversary for Mario Bros. Being in 1983. If you haven't figured out the conundrum yet, that's because Super Mario Bros. And Mario Bros. Are two different games. Mario Bros. Came out in 1983, and Super Mario Bros. Came out in 1985. So with that distinction out of the way, there are two different anniversaries that we can talk about here. And based off all the games I've already presented, it's clear that Nintendo has a huge Mario focus right now. But there hasn't been a actual dedicated marketing about this 40th anniversary. But there was for the 35th one when it comes to Super Mario Bros. As opposed to just the basic Mario Bros. Why is that? If anything, I think you can make a really great argument that this year is a much better celebration than then. Well, back then we got a number of little things, but the big standouts were Super Mario 3D All-Stars, Mario Kart Live Circuit, and 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. It was a solid lineup for a year that didn't have a lot of big brand new releases because of the pandemic situation. But what we have now is clearly a far bigger, more dedicated effort. And the reason I've been assuming we're getting a lot more Mario Universe games now is in part because of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. It's an incredibly successful movie, it's really boosted the popularity of the Mario brand, and Nintendo is trying to take advantage of that with these consistent releases of Mario games. But I do think it goes a bit beyond that, because reportedly Switch 2 is coming out next year. We've seen the leaks from the legal case from Microsoft versus the FTC. A next-gen console is right around the corner, it's probably coming out next year. And looking at the lineup of games we've seen from Nintendo, to me, it's very clear that they are prepping themselves for a transition. And what I mean is that a lot of their games aren't being made by their primary developers. They're being outsourced elsewhere. They're projects that don't require all hands on deck. A lot of remasters and remakes, things of that nature. There still are some brand new games like Mario Wonder, but the ratios right now are clearly leaning more so in the remake remaster direction as opposed to before. And this is very much how things were during the end of the 3DS. In 2016 through 2019, we got more and more remakes and remasters. In large part, this was to facilitate the transition over to next gen. But a big part of that transition is not just giving their developers the time to make games for the next console, but it's also keeping their current sales going fairly strong. So they supported the 3DS as well as they could at the time, and right now Nintendo is supporting the Switch as well as they can at the time while preparing their next system. So what is Nintendo doing? They're capitalizing off of the Mario Bros. Movie, using that boosted popularity, and putting out as many Mario games as possible. And coincidentally, it's also the 40th anniversary for Mario Bros. Nintendo isn't specifically branding for the 40th anniversary, but does that mean they don't have something like this in mind? Personally, my take on anniversaries is that they're happening so often, especially when you account for how extensive and long development cycles can be, 3 to 5 years or more. This idea of a game lining up specifically just for an anniversary doesn't always make the most sense. Sometimes they may do something like this if the release timing and the slate of games all lines up well enough. But I don't really think Nintendo or any developer develops something just for an anniversary in mind, not a whole new game. Of course, anniversaries are used to inspire that nostalgia and stir up hype and excitement for a particular series so it can lead to more sales, which obviously is why game companies make games to sell those games and make money to continue running as a company, a business. But I don't necessarily think Nintendo has to do something more for the 40th anniversary. They've already done a lot. But can there be more? Could there be something else tied to all of this? I think the answer is yes. Just yesterday we put out a video talking about how apparently there is going to be a Mario Kart OLED edition that's going to be announced soon. If this happens, it's another bit of Mario content coming out, or Mario material coming out, alongside the Wave 6 Mario Kart DLC, and every other game we mentioned earlier in this video. That's a lot. But with Switch 2 around the corner, I do think there is more. I don't think Nintendo is going to open up the next generation without a 3D Zelda and without a 3D Mario. Maybe they can skip one of those two, but no way are they going to skip both. Tears of the Kingdom came out earlier this year. That was a major game that took well over half a decade to make. So yeah, we're probably not going to see the next full-scale brand new Zelda coming out soon into Switch 2's life cycle, assuming it's coming out next year, which is pretty darn likely, I would say. But 3D Mario, it's very likely, and I think once Switch 2 is officially announced to the public, we will see some level of a tease or showcase for 3D Mario. I think this is really likely. Andy Robinson, the owner of Video Games Chronicle, has said he's heard from multiple sources that 3D Mario is planned to be a big release for the next system. And that just makes a lot of sense. But I think 3D Mario might not be the only thing. I think there could be more. If Switch 2 is going to come out sometime next year, they're going to need some other big releases to really push the system if it's not coming out right at the end. If it's going to come out, say, maybe September or even this summertime, they're going to want to have a strong lineup of games. Now, it doesn't just have to be all Mario related, but I think Mario should have a big focus. Maybe it could just be 3D Mario. Maybe there's a bit more. Maybe we're going to be talking about the next big Mario Kart not too long from now. I mean, I'm already talking about it, but I mean, like, actually having official information from Nintendo to discuss. Mario Kart Deluxe is the best-selling game on the Nintendo Switch. They're closing out the DLC later this year. They're going to move on to that next big one. Of course, given the fact that Nintendo can clearly come up with all sorts of different types of Mario Universe games or spin-offs, there's always potential for another surprise or two from this IP that go beyond 2023, the 40th anniversary year. But if there is some sort of dedicated effort to use the anniversary as celebration, then there'll be flexibility in that timing. Of course, as I said earlier, there doesn't seem to be any particular branding on this, but we are getting more Mario content now than we've gotten in a long time, if not ever. And I think it's clear that more is on the way. And that's a good thing, because it's all pretty great. Of course, I would enjoy some variety as well, which I do think is coming. I have faith that Metroid Prime 4 will be a big deal not so long from now, and other Nintendo surprises may be there too. But yeah, Mario is happening right now. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.